everything or adhere to the God who does know all things?
First of all, what's wrong with appealing to absurdity?
So what the sports marketers are doing is they're creating an environment so the fan can come and have a good time. If the fan comes and has a good time, then the fan will come back. And it doesn't really matter what happens in the field, as long as the fan is having a good time. And so what the sports marketers are doing, creating an environment called tailgating. Y'all know what that means?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really taking the tailgate concept, which you get there early, you relax with your friends, you cook your own meal. You guys have been around, you've seen all this stuff. They're taking that concept and they're sort of professionalizing it or putting it on steroids or whatever way you want to say that. And so the fans, the marketers have taken ownership of the tailgating idea. They want the tailgating environment around a stadium, like the Georgia Dome where the Falcons play. They have a thing specifically called the Falcons Landing, which is out there in front of the dome. I think it opens up about 3 hours before kickoff, and they have all kinds of games and former players, and they're selling cell phones, Cokes and beer, and the whole bit. And so what that does is that attracts people to the dome 3 hours early. And so that's practically what I'm talking about is, so if you get to the game early, the marketers themselves have done the work for you to bring people out.
Wow.
And not only is it 5 or 10 people, it's 80,000 people, 100,000 people, 50,000 people, a lot of people there. So that's the first point. That's what's going on. And then when you get in the realm of like the Super Bowl or the Final Four, when you move into these, what I call, when a league is having its main event, the Super Bowl, what's really going on, I didn't really understand this for a while, but is the Super Bowl is the NFL's product. And they're highlighting their product with that game. And so what that means is on Super Bowl weekend, everybody who supports the NFL, just like all sports now, it's an economic enterprise. And so the NFL, all the people that support it, corporate sponsors, politicians, entertainers, everybody, plus the fan, are in town for that weekend. And so like today in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Columbus, Ohio, where Michael Coughlin's preaching, and Athens, Georgia, where Alex Bird is preaching, this is going to be the spiritual center of the state. When you have these big universities, these state universities having these games, and what I mean by that is the governor's probably there, all kinds of politicians, all kinds of business people, there's probably pastors in there. It's the spiritual center. So you're walking into this highly spiritualized environment. You're walking into a place where these organizers have set it up to attract a lot of people. And so that's what makes the sports thing such a great opportunity. There's lots of big events. There's state fairs and there's festivals and there's cherry picking and I've been to all of them. There's Gay Pride, there's Music Midtown in Atlanta. They have their own spiritual component, but one thing about the sports is of course, never fails, especially the big games. You go there, this is going on. So now you flip it around, and now you're looking for the lost sheep. And 100,000 people, there's going to be a lot of lost sheep out there, right? And so that's why you want to go out there and preach. So you preach in that environment, and that's why you want to try to bring a team with you to saturate an area, so you can pass out tracts and talk to people and rotate preachers, because you're trying to penetrate this crowd. And that's what we try to do at the Super Bowl by bringing 10 teams. Is we're trying to saturate a pretty large geographical area with the gospel, a team of 10, so we can saturate an area. When you've got 50,000 people roaming around you, that's saturating. Is you want to drop down in an area and saturate that area with the word. And then what happens, and I'll be done with this, and on this particular topic, is you begin to see the gospel work in their eyes. And so all that I've said is the backdrop to that lost sheep hearing the gospel and the Spirit of God working with the word. Now these are things you guys know already, right? Working in the middle of all this scenario, all this chaos, the word penetrates. And so the scenario doesn't prohibit the word, it just creates this tremendous environment for you to get out in the middle of it and preach at it. And that's why we do it, man. And that whole concept is a universal concept in the Western world. The Western world to me is, all English-speaking, English-first countries in the world. Empire went. That's to me the Western world, and this thing goes on. So all we got to do, the easy part about the sports stuff is all you got to do is just show up and you know what's coming, and you just start preaching. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
What do you think? Got any questions?
Yeah, anybody got any questions for Bill? Pick his brain. I mean, because, you know, he's been around for a while.
What areas are you and aren't you allowed in? I mean, I'm assuming you don't have to purchase a ticket or anything like that to have access to some areas, but is there a common understanding of where these areas are that you're prohibited from?
It's breaking up a little bit. Are you asking, do you preach anywhere?
Here, I'll filter the question. All right, Bill, he's saying, are there any areas, this is Tony Campos from Chicago, Illinois, by the way. Raise your hand, Tony. He sees you right here.
Oh, okay.
He's asking, you don't buy a ticket to go to the game. How do you know your boundaries? How do you know your limits? How do you know where you can and where you can't preach?
That's a great question. Well, free speech locations are sort of universally identifiable in that sense. See if I can explain it. Well, the big concept is to learn, and back up for a second, thinking through. Like in New York City a couple years ago at the Super Bowl, the stadium there, y'all can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The stadium was one of those stadiums that had parking all around it. And so that's a stadium that's, it's not a good stadium because there's no sidewalks. You want to look for a sidewalk, you want to look for a closed off street, and where to stand. It's, in other words, let me try to give a specific example. You would not go to a stadium and stand by the gate. You're still, just like in every free speech environment, like you guys are going to the state fair, you're looking for a public sidewalk where a lot of people are passing through. If it looks like a sidewalk, and it's not by the gate, it is a sidewalk, and that's pretty much a spot where you can stand. Tommy can probably give some more examples. He was down at the Dome. The other part of this thing is that you, at all these big events, you have a security. They are concerned about security. They don't really care what we're doing down there. But when we begin to create a security hazard, then that's why they want to push us away. So that's why you don't come up there and stand by the turnstile. You want to get away from the gate. You want to get away from where the crowd gathers to go into a place, because that's when you interfere with security. And if you can get on a sidewalk, then that's kind of the general idea of what to look for. I'm trying to think at the University of Tennessee and the University of Georgia, they actually close off the street that runs right by the stadium. So if they close off a street and you don't have to buy a ticket to get on the street, then you can go down there and preach on there. That's one way that's another sign. If you see ticket scalpers, and there's usually the ticket scalpers are standing in a place where it's okay to preach from. That's another example. At UGA, I was down at Florida one time. In Florida, I sit on the campus kind of, so I would back up, to get by the street. But you can try, if I think we got down by the stadium there in Florida and got in a good spot. They left us on the free speech thing. This is important. The laws of the land features your voice and literature. When you turn on the amp, you're going to enter the world of city code. So, like for me, if I go down to a place I'm not sure about, I did not take an app. I never use an app for this really reason. I spent so much time by myself that I didn't want any more hassle than I needed, and I just one reason I don't use one is just so I can get close and not be messed with. But if you go down there and you're not really sure, what I would not do is turn the amp to a 10, or if you don't use an amp, raise your voice as loud as it'll go. I try to enter an area as unpossible and speak at a level where people can hear me that are passing by, and test the waters for a little bit if I'm not sure. Down at Auburn, we did that. We can get away with it, but what happened, one guy, he got up on the stool, he turned on the amp, and we were right by the stadium, but they closed off a street around the stadium, a small road, and the authorities came over and made us move out. So the closer you get, you're going to have to tamp down the intensity unless it's unless you see like at Georgia or Tennessee or South. Well, you don't really get the stadium of South Carolina. Unless you just see it's just chaos and beer drinking and ticket selling, and they're doing everything out there. So you can get in the middle of that environment and have at it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
And also, don't forget, guys, what Bill and other leaders and I we're trying to do is to network together. So if you're in a location, don't hesitate to give me a call. And if I don't know, I can call Bill, because I'm learning a lot as I travel around, because I got to Phoenix, and who did I call? I called Bill. There was a Cardinal San Francisco game going on. So I called Bill. I said, hey, Bill, what about Glendale? You know, what I need to know about the stadium? And Bill gave me a rundown about the stadium and, the freedom to preach there. So I got there, set up in a zone I didn't know I couldn't be in, began preaching. Security guard came over. I was just inside of the company's blueprint where they sell or they rent business locations out. And so I just had to move over like maybe 50 yards and I was fine. But just knowing this information, and every time you go to a location, Tony, the first time you preach at a Bears game, you're going to learn a lot about it. You're going to learn the layout, you're going to learn where the good spots are to set up and things like that. But never hesitate to call me, and if I don't know the answer, I can call Bill, or call Craig, or call Sean, or whoever we need to call to get the right information.
And there may be people even there that you can join up with.
Yeah, there may be. And that's, Sean, we've been talking about that for years, coming up with a database or some way that we can know where each other are at, which preachers in which state. So and that's future stuff that we need to get better at doing.